Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a crossroads. And this crossroads, I believe, is right here today. Because you have a choice. Which lane do you want to go down? One lane is, I'm okay, what's happening in our business and the way we do things, it's okay because we did it last year and the year before that. Or do we embrace change and migrate? When you look outside at Hong Kong, you look at a dynamic city, a city that has changed remarkably and is at the forefront of change. But we need to grab some of that and put it in our business. It's particularly in the finance area. Because, unfortunately, many people in finance are spending far too much time at their desk. Busy tapping away on spreadsheets, ringing home and saying you're going to be back at midnight. Instead, we should be spending more time in front of people, selling change. And then as we migrate, we want to be part of a team that is creating history and not spending time recording history. The recording part should be quick and efficient. Unfortunately for us, Charles Dickens is alive and well. The great writer is embedded in finance and in other parts of our organisation. Month-end reporting is far too slow. We have spreadsheets everywhere. The accounts payable are buried in paper-based invoices. I mean, here in Hong Kong, in these skyscrapers, you have these organisations who have spent millions on IT. And we have the customer here, millions in IT. And how do we transfer data? By Charles Dickens' paper-based invoice. Many of you have obviously broken through that barrier and are now sending the data electronically. Cheques are still being used. Well, they're over 200 years old. And the annual planning process. Folks, that didn't work back in Charles Dickens' times, and it doesn't work for you now. You all know, as soon as the ink has dried, the annual plan is wrong. I go around the world telling people we've got to replace it. And we've got to do forecasting much quicker. And we've got to recognise, everybody, that when you forecast, there is one thing that you know, is your forecast is going to be wrong. Yeah. You may as well get it wrong quickly. But stay in the helicopter and get it as close as you can, but you'll never get it right. The answer is certainly not delving into detail. If we go round the room here, I've asked many of you about annual planning. Is there anybody in this room that is currently satisfied that the annual planning process produces monthly targets that are actually relevant? Anybody? No, I know what your reports say. It's a timing difference. It was a timing difference. Wasn't meant to happen this month. You could give me your reporting and I'll do it in my office in New Zealand. I can fill out those comments for you. Our reporting is broken because we're using the wrong targets. Who here in this room is satisfied that their KPIs are helping drive their organisation to good to great? Anybody? What's happening in our organisations is we haven't even defined the word KPI. We know it stands for Key Performance Indicator, but folks, some of your KPIs are monthly, correct? And I'll tell you straight away, you cannot have a monthly KPI. If it's key to your business and you're looking at it monthly and you're saying, oh, we had a bad month this month, isn't that a bit late? It's like speaking to one of your horse trainers here in Hong Kong and saying, sometime last month your prize stallion went missing. That would be real useful information, wouldn't it? KPIs are much more in the here and now. So I'm going to take you on this journey We're going to talk about revitalizing performance, and I'll introduce you to this area and leave you to read a paper that I've provided you. I'll talk briefly about KPIs. There's plenty of documentation of my work there, and I know some people here are very keen on the reporting side, so we'll go into that, and then we'll come back to this rolling process. I believe there are 5 foundation stones to revitalizing performance, the ones that I would like you to focus on. And I'm going to go through each one of these. The first one is, we have to understand as accountants and IT managers and CEOs much more about human behavior. And many of the great writers in the last 20 years have talked so much about this area. The first thing in order to lead people, and many of you here, I can tell that from just looking at you that you've got staff underneath you, we need to know more about ourselves. In order to lead, you need to know what baggage you've got on your back, because it determines and affects how we manage. And I would recommend to you all here about the Enneagram. It's a unique way of understanding your drivers that make you do things. And it helps you magnify the positive and minimize the negative. We've all got negative traits, folks, as we know. We need to know more about our staff so that we can understand how to manage them better. We must understand more about leadership. Winning leadership. And folks, we have to be able to recruit winners. How many people here have recruited somebody they've lived to regret? Come on, let's have the hands. Now, this is a very simple formula, folks. You either spend 40 hours at the top of a cliff preparing a proper fence and getting the right people on board, or you spend 400 hours removing bodies at the bottom. Yeah. If you recruit somebody that doesn't fit, it's a 400-hour job, roughly, to get it. And some people say that's even an underestimate. We've got to learn to recruit. And to help you, folks, I've donated you in my area on my website a chapter out of my book on recruiting, and it's got the 14 golden questions to help you, target the way you focus on getting the right people. But we really do need a solid base in order to change performance, and these 5 books I have in front of you, many of those here may have come across some of these. Without doubt, Peter Drucker is the Leonardo da Vinci of management. In 200 years from now, if we were having a meeting here, there would be more people understanding his work than there currently is today, just like with Leonardo. He wasn't appreciated so much in his lifetime. And I urge you to read this book here by an author who was the last person to work with Peter Drucker, Elizabeth Eldersheim. Get her book and have it on your bookshelf and absorb it. Otherwise, you're going to have to read his 32 books, so one is better than 32. Jack Welch, the great Jack Welch, called the greatest CEO of the last 100 years, Jack has written a book and he's donated his royalties to charity. His book, Winning. Has anybody got that book, Winning? Yep, some people. It is a fantastic book. And you're getting an insight to Drucker at the same time. Jim Collins, of course, is a legend. Good to Great. And Peters and Waterman, their fantastic book, over 25 years old now, a masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece and relevant. Every single business decision or issue you face in the now and in the next 10 years are covered by these writers. They've told you how to fix it. They've told you what to do. And if you absorb it, you'll get there. And of course, last but no means least, Gary Hamel. One thing for Gary, for example, one of the tips he gives, and it's very relevant today when we're talking about forecasting, he says, with forecasting, use every brain in the game. When you're forecasting revenue, why don't you utilize all the people in the sales at the customer interface and ask them